So today I have the opportunity to record a conversation with somebody that's been a good friend to me for a lot of years now, Seth Winterhalter, the founder and CEO of Halting Winter. I met Seth when he was the pastor of a church and has since transitioned. And a key piece of your background that we're going to talk about, because it affects how you engage with business owners, is this interesting tidbit. You are a classically trained conductor. How does that play into what you're doing now? Maybe we just start right there.
Just jump right in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I spent the first 10 years of my kind of adult life after graduating from Bard Conservatory of Music in New York with an orchestral conducting degree, conducting orchestras. Founded my own orchestra, the Capitol Philharmonic. And I think the lessons there learned in that have so translated now, not only in helping business owners, but in doing keynote speeches and workshops. And what it is it's most leaders struggle with how much they're supposed to actually give. How much am I participating? And we have I think there's a thing right now, the servant leadership, and it means I always lead first, and I don't want to. If there's chairs to be stacked, I've got to stack them too, right? We can't we're very nervous about how we look in our leadership. And I think the picture of the conductor reminds us, you have to have a leader leading. You can't have three conductors because now you have three visions and you have chaos. Whose baton are you supposed to follow from the stage to keep you all in beat, to keep you all in rhythm? And so we need one leader, but we also, the conductor makes no music, does not make a sound. And so they have to control themselves to not go, I'll play the violin and conduct. No, you just conduct. You do what you need to do. You cast the vision, you keep the tempo of the mission, and you create the excitement and the culture that's going to make those musicians want to play together and play gloriously. And so
my mind immediately jumps to, what about those that would say, well, I'm a player coach, right?
And I think there's a place for that in different sizes.
Yeah.
But once your organization, I think the sooner a leader understands that the player coach has so many weaknesses, the only strength it has is that it creates a camaraderie to go, we're all in this together. And I think there's a beauty in that. But if you stay in that too long, you do not have a view of your business. And the problem is you wear two hats. You're still a worker and you still have to do all the back end work of business. You're exhausted now. And you think it's good because, people see that I'm rowing hard. But the problem is they don't see all the work you do. So you've actually done a disservice to you. Now your employees only see what you do. And guess what? When you get tired and start slacking in that because you're wearing these other ginormous hats, they go, why? You're one of us and you're not rowing as hard. And it's like, I'm rowing 10 times as hard because I have 10 times more responsibility, more things I'm doing on the back end. So, right, you see this in conducting, in a lot of the Baroque, the harpsichord. The player will play a Bach piece, and he'll play from the harpsichord and conduct the orchestra. But your ears, if you're playing an instrument, you can't hear really what's going on. You're hearing you. You're focused on you. And so that's where, sure, if the piece is very straightforward, old Baroque music, you can do that. You can't play Beethoven 5 or Brahms 2 or Mahler 3 and be like, I can play. No conductors be like, well, what are you doing? It's impossible. And so as the organization grows specifically, and I think the sooner you can do that as a leader, you'll be more healthy. And your team will be more healthy. But you have to communicate, right? It's about communication. And not just by what we do, by what we say. How are we leading?
Yeah. Well, speaking of communication, we just dove in kind of with both feet here. I don't want to speed past some of your background that has led you to where you're at today. So we touched on kind of getting your start in music. And then I met you when you were the leader of a church. And then it was really during COVID that you made kind of a pivotal transition. And as I was thinking about, how do I describe Seth? Okay, he's a speaker, he's a culture coach, he's a small business consultant. So why don't you take a minute to unpack kind of that transition during COVID, starting Halting Winter. You've been doing writing podcast, speaking. What's it all about?
So here's the problem with me. I love too many things. And that's really been my journey over the last couple of years, is going, okay, you're never going to be effective doing a lot of things. If you really want to have significance and impact, you need to whittle down and really go, when people say, oh, it's Seth, they know, well, what does Seth do? And I think that's been a journey I've had to be on. And that goes back to even what you said. I was a lead pastor specifically for a decade. And in that, I loved people. I love seeing people transformed, mature, grow, get to know themselves, get to know what their purpose is. And I think that's what attracted me to church work, is I got to be a part of that process in really every area and aspect of life. Religion usually encompasses, myself, my family, my work, and the decisions, what I'm doing with my life. And so it was a cool opportunity to be at that. The issue for me is it was hard. I can give good counsel, but I'm not a great reoccurring counselor. Come back to me over and over and over with kind of the same problems, and we'll just have a session. That wore me out. And so now that's why I knew probably 3 years into lead pastoring that it wasn't the best place for me. So I plant this church almost knowing that it wasn't my future. Planted saying, okay, I'm gonna take this out, because it was planted out of chaos. If you kind of know my story, part of one of the fastest growing churches in America that all of a sudden implodes structurally, organizationally. And so out of that, planted this church, and knew even then this wasn't a long-term game for me. I wanted to get these leaders healthy, this team healthy, these people healthy. And COVID kind of sped that up to say, man, okay, some things happened even in that, and dealing with all kinds of realities, and just said, okay, this isn't healthy for my soul. And when you're not healthy and you're not a healthy leader, it's not going to be good for anything you lead. So I knew, okay, before this gets to a spot where I think I'm impacting things negatively, I need to pass this off. And so we did that. We made a transition plan, and then it was kind of like I wasn't really ready for that myself. It wasn't like I had this big plan on what I was going to do. I had always had this dream of a company called Halting Winter, because my name Winterhalter that's what I got made fun of as a kid. Oh, you halt the winter, you halt the winter. It was like, you know what? Maybe I do. Maybe I help people who've been in a winter season too long find a way to get to spring. Find a way to get to harvest. We were talking earlier, we need winter. Like, we don't want to always be in planting mode or in harvest mode, because you'll exhaust yourself. You need all the seasons, but sometimes we're in winter too long. And things like the pandemic, things like the current recession, can put people in a mind space where they're in winter, where they're afraid, where they're living out of fear, they're not creative. Whenever cash gets tight, we kind of, start not acting with risk, healthy risk, and with dreaming and visioning. And so I knew coming out of the pandemic that's what I wanted to give my life to. It's the same thing, right? I love people. I love their purpose. I love helping them figure that out, how to not only find the purpose, but thrive in that. And so now I just do it in a more business setting, specifically focusing on businesses that have kind of moved past the solopreneur phase. They're starting to hire people. They're starting to grow and scale, but they've grown and scaled just by sheer grit and almost skill. I work with a lot of doctors, dentists, construction, people who really are specialists in their field, but that's the problem. They're too much in the field and not enough working on the back end of business, and so that business hat just overwhelms them. And then they just go, well, hopefully I'll just do more work to grow this business. And that's not, you can't scale. You can't grow past yourself.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and earlier when we were talking about seasons, right? And we were kind of agreeing that people want it to be spring all the time and don't always necessarily, and in a business context, and sometimes even in just a personal context, we all kind of want to be in harvest all the time. We want the fruit to be bearing. And it becomes challenging in today's go world to break free from that mindset. But you said something of particular interest that triggered a memory for me around we're actually made to work from rest, not rest from work.
Yeah.
And you were talking about some of the work that you do around personal well-being for these leaders. And that's a part of your story too, was prioritizing personal well-being. How do you implement that into the work that you do with clients?
Yeah, it's a great question. So a little bit of my story. So in 2018, successful church, successful. I mean, if you looked at my life, people would be like, man, you're a successful guy. I'm 100 pounds overweight. People don't realize that I don't know if I'd be depressed. I'm really not, I don't characterize, but it's hard to get out of bed. It's hard to be motivated. It's hard to find there was nothing new. There was nothing invigorating, right? And I'm physically tired and exhausted, but you just kind of grind through, right? And so I go to Honduras there's a large nonprofit, do a lot of child development education. So I go there to see, they want our church to be a part of what was going on there. So we go and I come back and my body shuts down. And they think, oh, you've got one of those, you drank the water and you've got some kind of, whatever that is. They test, they can't find anything. And this is going on 4 or 6 weeks. And I can't, eating hurts, physically hurts. And I just looked in the mirror, I said, okay, something is wrong. I'm afraid it's serious. Do I have some kind of cancer or something? And so just totally overhaul my diet. 6 months after this, I've lost probably 30 pounds just for a diet overhaul. And I go, I got to get to the gym. I got to keep going. I got to keep doing. And the issue was for me, I was so focused. I heard a phrase from probably some leader in my life who said, I always want to make it easy on them and hard on me. And I said, that sounds really noble. It's just BS. I go, you kill yourself. And I was living, it's just, I think we were so nervous about being seen in light of all the bad leaders we see. Right? Because that's kind of the media, right? We love to highlight negative stories nowadays. When I was growing up, it was always the news was highlighting the cat heroes, the people who go rescue the cat in the tree. Now it's what negative can we find? And the problem is, if you're I think a good leader, you're a good person, you live with a lot of fear that, am I doing something wrong? That's a horrible place to work from, because now, guess what? You can spend all day long thinking about creating assumptions of what other people think of you. And now you're living your life not by really who you are and how you want it. You're living life, well, how is this going to be seen? How is this? There's anxiety, there's fear. And I think that's where I said, I gotta stop this. It can't matter what you think of me. I know that I want to love people and serve people with my fullest ability. And I just can't give credence. I can't give you space. And it's me giving me space, really. Yeah. It's not you, because that's imaginary. And so I think then, this whole journey of health, I had to get my physical health. And it was rest as well. It's sleep. And that's where today, even when I do executive coaching for clients, what's funny is a lot of them come to me because they see that story. They go, you lost 100 pounds, and you didn't just lose 100 pounds, you're pretty built now for 45 years old. How does this happen? Yeah. And it's well, you have to dial in. You have to dial in diet. You have to dial in sleep. Those first two. Then you dial in some activity. And you start to go, I got to care for me. And that doesn't mean people are afraid, well, this isn't going to be seen as selfish. Again, seen. No, it's you have to be self-focused. A cup has to be poured into to pour out. And so if we don't do this work, you're going to give your worst. You're going to give, it's I don't know if I have an iPhone. I keep buying iPhones, which I don't know why. Maybe probably all the phones have the problems. But the problem is 2 years in, I haven't even paid for the phone yet. And 2 years in, I know that it says 100%. It ain't 100%. It's 30% because it dies with 30, right? It dies in 3 hours. I think that's us. We continue to grind and grind, not living out of rest, like you said, living out of, I just got to do more. I got to do more. And all of a sudden you wake up and you have 5% battery, and that's as high as you can get. And so you're constantly looking, you sleep bad, you wake up all the time, you're just kind of in this, and it's because diet, sleep, rest, even your, the things in business. I always ask clients when I'm meeting with them for the first time, is what's frustrating you right now? In your whole life, what's frustrating? Is it relationships? How do we just start to deal with some of those frustrations, speaking truth or actually taking action? And yeah, it's your whole person, emotional, physical, mental. We have to care for ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Where else does that show up? Or maybe I'll ask it this way. Do you have any examples where you've worked with a client and just by starting to work on those things that are seemingly outside of the business, you've tracked upticks and positive forward momentum in the business?
Yep. So working with a construction CEO right now, $8 million company. And when he came to me, that's really what he said. I feel he had responded to a podcast I had been on I had hosted about just, are you fighting fires? Like, does it feel like you have a dream, you have a vision, but you spend all of your time fighting fires? You're a firefighter. And he goes, that's me. He goes, I have this, I want to get ahead, but it's like the open door policy just exhausts me. And I go, okay, well, let's dive in to your, just your personal before. Like, why do you want to not be, is it just for business? Or tell me about your, relationships, your kids. And that's what all of a sudden it comes out. Like, I want to retire in like less than 10 years. I want to spend time with my wife. I want to actually go on date nights. When's the last time you went on a date night? I don't even remember, right? But what about your kids, your grandkids? He's like, yeah, we're doing this whole remodel in the house and putting in a pool, and we want time with the grandkids. I go, if you live your life now, when are you ever going to see that? You're going to build it and show them you love that, but then you're going to be like, I got work. Or if you're home, you're going to be on your phone. I got work. And so all of a sudden we started to do a project. We call it Hero on a Mission. It's part of Donald Miller's Business Made Simple, which I use a lot of their frameworks. And Hero on a Mission just says, write your obituary. That's the project. Write your obituary and think of it. And I kind of take that to a next level. And I say, write your obituary and pretend you're reading it. And look out, who's there at your memorial service. And every memorial service you're at nowadays, like they open mic and they let people talk, which I don't know why are we doing this? It's chaos. But imagine, like, what were the closest people to you if they were absolutely brutally honest? They don't prepare a speech. They don't get to hone up the edges. What if they were just given a mic and they had it's like Liar, Liar, Jim Carrey, right? They had to be brutally honest about how they remembered you.
Yeah.
How would that go for you? And what could you do now to change that? If you could actually create for them a life that you want for them, how do we do that? And all of a sudden they just wake up to like, okay, this guy woke up and he goes, I have to stop with the phone. I have to stop with the fires. I have to stop. And it's a process. It's not like overnight he was like the new guy and doing it. Yeah. But it's been a slow, like all of a sudden, okay, yeah, I'm not going to touch my phone. I'm not taking he didn't take his phone with him on a date night. I think it's probably been 4 weeks ago. That was the first time in probably 3 decades he didn't have his phone with him, that he didn't open it up and check email 3 times during date night.
Wow.
Right? And tell me, and I said, and not only did that mean something to him, I go, what did that mean to your wife? And he goes, you can't even, like she's speechless because she knows how, and she knows it's not, she knows I love our customers. She knows that I'm providing with that. So it's not like she gets it. But for me to do that meant the world to her. And it was so significant. And now I want to do it again. Yeah. And I want to make that a priority because it felt so good to love her in that way. Yeah. And it's just, that's the thing. It's not like we know these things. You don't need coaches to tell us this. We know them. But we need coaches sometimes and people in our life to give us the bigger picture and to go, try it. Try it with me. Let's work together. Let's try these things because I think once you actually act it, it's one thing to think it. We think these things a lot. We need someone to help us hold accountable so we'll take action. So we'll experience the change and go, it was worth it.
So in that, what are some of the things that have changed in his business as he's begun to let go of a little bit more and focus more on himself?
I tell most CEOs and executive team members, the tension is we love being busy because it makes us feel like we're doing something. But it's that busyness that's usually pointless. It's not moving our companies forward. It's not empowering other people so we can actually do things that are important. And so that's what he found. He found that even that date night gave him a creativity, a freshness, an excitement about, right? just life. And so it's the same thing now with business. We say how he doesn't have an assistant, right? $8 million company, all this work.
Right.
And it's because what's interesting to me is that oftentimes I've found that people that come from nothing who build businesses, even though they're successful and they have money in the bank, are so nervous that it's all going to end tomorrow. They'll make one decision or something will happen and the bottom will fall out. And so it's helped him to go, you're not really you're not building a team around you. And that's the problem, where you're going to try to sell this business, and when you leave, it's worth nothing because you're tied into everything.
Yeah.
And I go, when you start to empower these people to make decisions on their own, and you're going to give them life, because right now they just feel like cogs in a machine. Let's give them life. And so all of a sudden we're seeing that, right? As he starts to make decisions personally, he starts to make decisions corporately, and all of a sudden things around him, the culture changes. People are more excited because they feel like I make a difference. Back to the conductor thing. I'm being heard instead of the conductor. Can you imagine if you went to a concert and the conductor said, tonight we have something real special. We're going to do Beethoven 5. And he turns around to conduct, and he drops the downbeat, and he turns around and starts singing it. Dun 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 dun. He starts singing all the parts, and the players are just kind of like, they're like faking it, and you're just like, what am I here for? What is this?
Yeah.
That's what we're doing in business. We're just singing because we've got to make sure it's perfect, and it's not perfect. No one wants to hear a conductor. Half of them are tone deaf, right? Like, I want to hear 85 musicians. I go to the Seattle Symphony to hear those players. I go to the New York Phil then to hear that sound. And so that's what we want. Like, I want, and we want to make sure that all the parts, right? I did a keynote for a company in Seattle a few weeks ago. It's actually why I'm up in Seattle. And I said in this, I go, we have all these parts. You have the strings and the brass and the percussion and the woodwinds. And I go, if I'm honest, like, not into the woodwinds. Kind of annoying sounds. Flute, like not into the jazz flute. Not right?
But you're a conductor.
Right, I'm a conductor. I was trying to shine and love all these. And I'm like, I have an appreciation for them, but especially when they're played bad, there's not a medium. It's either you're a great flautist or you're horrible. Oh, but same thing. They can be really annoying instruments, right? And I think but if you don't have those, if you take those out, you cut all the high end of the orchestra. You cut just these amazing instruments. And not only if you cut them out, but let's say you've got great brass players, but the brass players, our sales team is awesome. We're a sales company. We're built on sales. Well, guess what? They just blew out the orchestra. And so now I didn't hear Beethoven 5. I heard Brass 5. And I think that's the beautiful picture is you have to have an appreciation, and the conductor's got to get out of the way. My job isn't to be the best salesman. How many, again, I've been a business owner, director, a pastor, lead pastor of an organization. If I'm trying to be the best, I got to be the best preacher. I got to make sure our marketing, I got to be the best marketer. I got to be the best. Guess what, man? You're exhausted. And it's not good because no matter how good you are, if you're put in a position of leadership, either A, the company's not going to move forward because you're not doing the things that actually move it forward, or B, you're so in the weeds of stuff. Like, here's the thing. Time moves. Like, think about now. ChatGPT is on what? Like 5, it'll be on 6 tomorrow, it'll be on 10 in 3 weeks. Yeah. Like, it's just, I can't keep up with it. So it's not my job, though, if I'm trying to keep up with all the best sales thing, all the best marketing. Instead, I want to surround myself with those people and create a vision and beat the drum of mission. Yeah. This is who we are. This is why we exist. This is why it matters. This is why we show up to work, whether we show up virtually or we show up in the office or we show up in the field. Like, this is why. And that's why I find a lot of CEOs, businesses aren't thriving because they're disconnected to the why. They know the what. They show up and do the what. They figure out how, but they have no why. Or they haven't connected it to really a community. Right? Mm-hmm. Our businesses exist to make a community better. And that's what I love to do. I love helping CEOs find out what is the why. Why do we have construction? Well, he's the company, it's an environmental construction company. Well, we have that because this city deserves to be healthy. right? And so what we're doing is making sure the project's done, the updated, the thing, our kids need to live in a healthy city, right? Construction, everyone deserves to have their investment actually being quality, right? Amazon, I always used to say this as a pastor, I'm addicted still to Amazon, just use this in my confession time. Right, I get books every week, avid reader. Well, guess what? Someone feels that they're just a cog in a wheel in an Amazon warehouse, babysitting robots, I guess. They're, packing boxes.
Well, knowing how many books you read, there's probably one robot dedicated to Seth Winterhalter, just hauling books back and forth.
Has my tattoo on it, right? Well, here's the thing, like, someone is in there thinking, this is just a job. But guess what? You helped me get books to read and absorb content that I used to transform lives. Yeah. You're a part of that. And that's why, I want to help people see, even in the mundane and the ordinary. You are, I work with a company does solid waste, recycling, trash. And it's like, you guys were there. Can you imagine if we didn't have trash pickup during the pandemic? You want to talk about essential? Yeah. Like, I'm sorry, but like, no American is living in a trash heap. Right? Mm-hmm. Like we're upset. We're upset when there's a holiday and my trash didn't get picked up and it's 24 hours later, right? Yeah. Like, there are things that happen that people go, I do this, I'm not respected. I'm like, dude, you are. You're just, the problem is you're not an Instagram highlight reel. You're not on some, whatever news media getting, but that stuff is not important. That stuff is hoopla. At the end of the day, you find your why, you find the significance, because unless you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing, you're doing something that matters. And I think that's the job. Again, back to leadership, is do we have that for our company? Do we have that for our projects? Mm-hmm. How many times do you go in and people don't know why they're doing what they do? They're just doing what they're told. Yeah. You're leading towards burnout. You're leading towards quiet quitting. Because people want meaning. Yes, they want pay. Yes, they want praise. But meaning ties it all together.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to pivot a little bit, because we've talked about a lot of business lessons that come from the music background, but I'm particularly interested to hear the business lessons that came from being a lead pastor, because I think that's a very underrated business skill, because a lot of people, when they think of church, they don't think about all of the things that need to go on behind the scenes in a church. They don't think about how a church needs to be managed, and they don't think about the fact that it's done largely with a volunteer base. So you can't really incentivize the way that you do in a business with bonuses or a higher salary. It all comes down to mission at that point. So how does that translate over into what you're working on with executives inside businesses? What did you glean from that experience?
So good. If I can summarize what I'm giving my life to in this next chapter, it's helping businesses have the soul of a nonprofit and having nonprofits have the acumen of a business, right? And what you learn in nonprofit work is it's solopreneur work, right? I think I don't know what the percentage is. I would guess it's 85% or plus, higher. That most churches are just one pastor, right? It's one paid staff, operated everything. And so you have to be everything. You're the marketing director, right? You're the CEO, the CMO, the CFO, all the letters in between C and O. And so the only way you can do that and have a church that can actually pay some bills is to raise up people. And most, again, pastors, even for the most part, I'd love to see a report on, out of all the churches in America, how many of those pastors even have, 4-year degrees, right? And if they do, because I went to Bible college for my undergrad. I was a music major. I was actually a dual major. I was a music major and a biblical Bible major. And I'm telling you, that degree did not help me pastor. It told me how to think about different books and how to understand kind of the denominational tribe I was in, but it did not help me with anything when it came to actually founding a church, growing a church, understanding the elements of a church. That was all, test and work and figure out and talk to, business owners and people. And so I think that it was beautiful, though, both working with Orchestra's the same thing. It's a nonprofit, right? And so yes, you pay your musicians, but everything else, like I didn't have, especially when you found an orchestra, we don't have event managers, we don't have a staff and all this back end putting on. I mean, we put on the team that we built, and we were kind of unique because we did these huge dinner events, and so we had before the concert, an hour-long event, 5-course meals with some guests, musician guests would come in and play and talk about what they're going to play at the concert. We just always wanted it to be awesome. Mm-hmm. And I think, again, it comes back to the why. Why are we doing what we're doing? And because we want to inspire people. We want people to leave our concert going, that was the best thing I did all month. That was the memory. Mm-hmm. It tickled all the senses. And I think that's where, so that the biggest thing from a nonprofit is you have to have an incredible why, not just for people to show up, but for people to serve. I mean, You're talking about hundreds of volunteers and getting them, here's what's the hardest thing I think about church work, is usually what people work at, they don't want to then do in their spare time. Mm-hmm. But guess what? Like if you're a great web developer, it's hard then for you to go, well, I want to work in children's ministry.
Yeah.
Great, but we need a website. And man, we can't let, whatever, guy who milks cows who's never done a website all of a sudden do our website as his hobby, right? Yeah. And so how do you help people? Both, because it's a both and. You want to help people find. You don't want to push them, but you also want to call them to say, man, if we want to have significance, how can we use your skills and talents? How can that be a part too? While still helping you also find some other space. So there's a lot of management. It's management of people. Talk about burnout, right? You're always trying to figure out how do we, as you build to a nonprofit, and you probably feel this in business even, as you grow, you need more people. Mm-hmm. And guess what? When you're doing that with volunteers, there's no bedrock. Because like you say, is at least when you grow a business, you're growing financially, hope you should be. And so you're able to hire more because you have the disposable cash. Well, volunteers aren't. And that's the danger of nonprofits is when they start to hire because they go, oh no, Judy left. Judy's essential. We have to have Judy, so now we'll pay for it. And so all of a sudden I've worked with a number of churches that just have bloated staffs because they started to, they felt like they had to hire instead of, again, go back to why, what got them there, why, the clarity call of be a part of this, and the ability to move. A nonprofit has to be willing to really be flexible, to go, you know what, Judy was here and she had a great ministry, but Judy's not here anymore, and it doesn't seem like we've got someone to be able to lead that now. But now we've got John, and John's got this great thing, so we're going to focus on that. And how do you be nimble? And sometimes in business, you got to do that too, right? Good to Great. It's probably one of the great business books, Jim Collins. Mm-hmm. And he talks about a lot of the businesses that failed coming up in the 50s, 60s, 70s that we thought would be powerhouses just wouldn't change.
There's something that you said that I wanted to jump back to. Because it touched on something that we deal with a lot in our practice, which is owner dependency, right? And that's one of the key factors. And so as you were talking about that determines the value of a business, right? So a lot of the businesses that we're working with are 3 to 5 years away from some form of transition, and they're starting to look at what's going to make me worth the most money to a buyer, right? And one of those key things is owner dependency. If everything's tied up with that owner. So when you were telling that story of that CEO who left his phone at home for date night, what I was thinking about is the empowerment that gives then to the person that would have called during that dinner, and kind of puts them in the position of like, okay, it's my responsibility now to resolve whatever this issue is that had come up because I can't contact the CEO. Where does that show up in your work with the leaders? And what is the most common mindset around reducing owner dependency as you work with them to delegate things?
Yeah. Well, I think it starts with first addressing the owner's fear. What do you fear? What do you, let's work through, because a lot of them they never get past, even though the business is growing and it's totally a different organization now. It's got employees, it's got systems, but they're still operating like a solopreneur. They have the mindset that's just like, again, like I said earlier, it could be lost in one day. It's like you couldn't lose it in one day. You know, it's impossible. You'd have to literally go out and you would have to literally burn it to the ground somehow with something extreme. And so, yeah, you know, I get that you still want to be mindful, but it's looking at them and going, let's just get things out on the table and look at reality versus what's going on. What are the fears in your head? So let's start there. Second, let's really look at what do you think leadership is? Like, how are you leading your teams? And what they find out is they think they're empowering people, but they're not. They're just delegating, right? Delegation is I tell someone what to do, and delegation is the first step of trying to free yourself as you grow and scale. But empowerment is something else. Empowerment is giving power away, right? I empower you. Power means now you have decision-making ability. I've taught you, I've trained, and this is where, again, if you're a solopreneur, right? If you're $1 million and under in your business, the most important thing you can do is surround yourself with good employees that you've created, you've hired because they know the why of your business, they embody the behaviors that you have set. These are the most important behaviors and actions. We embody behaviors and actions. And a lot of people, they never do that. They hire people because they were impressed. Right, and that's the danger. A lot of people can be impressive in an interview, and but they have no idea what they're even getting to. It's like an identity thing. I just want to get hired. We have to know our business. We have to know our behaviors. We have to know our characteristics. And then, as you scale, it's the old adage is, I'm going to show you how to do it. Then we're going to do it together. Then I'm going to watch. And a business, I think, scales that way. Let's do it together. There is a time for that. But then. Or let's watch. You're gonna be my assistant, and then we're gonna do it together. We're gonna have kind of equality and this, and then I'm just gonna watch you. The problem is a lot of owners, a lot of leaders don't like that watch. They feel bored. They feel, again, like I said earlier, that I look lazy, and it's like you've got to get over that because you're the owner, you're the boss. Like that's your role now is to watch, and to reset. But you'll never have fresh eyes if you're not able to do that. And so that's what we try to do is we come into those situations is go, okay, let's start with the leader, and there's the mindset you have and the fears and the assumptions. Then let's actually look at your team and go, who's actually ready, right? Who needs to actually be empowered? And do they have the skill, not the skills, have we set the framework and the culture for them to actually live out that empowerment? So I'm not there to judge them every 2 seconds. I need them to make decisions. I need them to, my job is to cast the vision and beat the drum of mission. And if I do that well, their empowerment should lie in that house. Yeah. Why would they start building a secondary house that has nothing to do with our why and our mission? And it's because people don't beat the mission. They go into a board retreat, and we crafted a mission statement, and then we threw it in the closet when we got back, and we just did business as usual, right? Yeah. We say, if you craft a mission, and a mission isn't, people get confused too. They think mission statements are like, oh, we're noble, and we're, loving, and we're caring, and those are behaviors. That's not a mission. A mission is, you think about the military. Think about D-Day, right? D-Day is a specific mission. It's Normandy Beach. On this date, we're going to take this beach, and we're going to go no matter what, because if we don't get that beach, there's no way we can get into Europe, right? Now, that mission was a part of a big vision. That big vision was eradicating the evils of Hitler. So World War II has a big vision, but it has all these missions. And you have to have a specific mission to actually accomplish the vision. And that's where I find a lot of these companies, they have vision statements that are kind of quasi-mission statements, but they don't know what are we all rowing on right now, when is the date, when is it due, right? And what will it do to actually move the vision forward? You start doing that, and every week you should have a staff meeting where that's all we're doing. We repeat the mission, and we go around and we say, what are you doing? What project is your department working on? What are you doing to contribute to this? Great, we have clarity. Do you have any questions? Do you need guidance? Let's go. Boom, boom, boom. I'm here to help you do that. I'm here to, right? And that's and the leader then is looking at the next thing. Once it's accomplished, what is the next thing going to do? And man, you do that, all of a sudden you cannot grow, right? Because you're going to be adapting, you're going to be accomplishing, and you've created now a business on a mission. You've created now a business with momentum. instead of like, well, we'll just kind of keep, hopefully things will happen and we'll just kind of keep, you get into a staff meeting and it's like, well, what did you do last week? Well, and everyone's trying to sound like they did something.
Yeah.
This is how busy I was. Look how busy I am. And it's like, guys, stop being busy and start, what did you do to move this company forward? And let's talk about, well, this is what we've committed to. Man, now it's like an orchestra. Can you imagine if the strings were like, well, we want to play Shostakovich 5, and the flutes are like, well, we want to play, whatever piece makes the flute sound good. And you're just like, okay, well, we're making music, but it's definitely not good. But man, we sure do look busy. Everyone's playing it all the times. That's the other thing too, right? An orchestra has space, has silence. Sometimes it's just the strings take apart. Sometimes it's just the woodwind. Sometimes now we're all playing together, but we're in different dynamics. So you can't even you hear the brass, but you barely even hear everyone else. They're supportive. That's a business now, but we're all playing the same piece. And guess who's conducting it all? The conductor. So the conductor is absolutely busy, but they don't look busy. They're sitting there, right, waiting for the climax. They know exactly how the piece is going. They know how many measures. They know the time. And all of a sudden it gets there and boom, and it's like, oh, now the leader's busy. Look at him, he's flailing around, and the sound is awesome. But it took 372 bars of music to get there, and you didn't see it. You heard the growth, you heard the push, the pull. But man, the leader looked like he could have been taking a nap.
Yeah.
But guess what? He wasn't. He was doing what he needed to do. Keep the beat, conduct the different parts, keep it together so you could have that moment. The problem is business owners have done what they do for too long, just hamster wheel. And so, or they've grown the business just through pure grit and effort of doing all these things. And then, like you say, all of a sudden it's time to sell. And once you're gone, man, that business falls apart. The clients fall apart because you've touched every client. You're the chief connector. The sales team falls apart because you're the driving force. You never really empowered. You never really gave real ownership for them to feel like, what does it feel like? When's the last time you took a vacation? You know? And I took a 3-month sabbatical when I pastored. And people were like, oh, are you going to be so nervous that you're going to come back and the church is going to be falling apart? And I go, no. In fact, the church is going to grow while I'm gone. It's going to be healthy because the leaders I've raised up now they have no excuse. They have no way to come to me. So they have to make decisions now. And I've trained them. I've trained them to know exactly what to do. And I think there's going to be I think the church is going to be excited to grow and to be faithful and to do all these things while I'm gone. So when I come back, they're going to be like, see, it's like, the kids are like, hey, we're going to be gone for a couple hours. When we come back, can we have the house cleaned up? And if you've trained your kids, right? I think if you have a good culture, they're not going to just, throw a party and be chaos. They're going to be like, they'll do that for the first hour, but it's like, we got to clean. They're going to come back and we want to impress them, And so it's culture. Comes out of culture.
Yeah. How do you counsel leaders to develop that and in potential future leaders, right? Like, what do you counsel them to look for? What do you counsel them to start trying as far as giving responsibility to, because that's, again, we talked about owner dependency is one of the number one factors that we find in almost every business, that and marketing. Y'all need marketing. So how do you work with the leader, again, revolving around their fear of starting to give little bits away?
Yeah. 2 big things. The first one is, do you have a mission? Because I can't empower someone if they don't have a framework, if they don't know what they're empowered to do. Have a clear mission for that year, right? And I think your mission should be for a year. Maybe 2 if you're a $16 million company and I always like to have companies double every year, double your revenue. Once you get 16, 20, 25 million, that's hard to double your revenue. But you could double it over 2 years, right? And so it might be longer. But I think companies should have what are we doing this year? What are the 3 key objectives we're going to do to grow this business? So what's your mission? And why? Why does this mission need to be accomplished? What's it doing for the big vision of why you exist? So do you have a mission? Do you have key behaviors that your people like? We we embody. No, we want to learn, right? So we have a culture where we're not dedicated to just what we've always done, right? What are your 3 behaviors? What are your 3 actions? Now, why do I say that's important? It's important because you need to empower them to do what, but you also want to empower the right people. When a leader starts to empower, the problem sometimes is they look and go, I haven't done this. I need to empower. So they just start throwing things and go, oh, you're empowered. It's like Oprah Winfrey. You get a car. And it's like the problem is that's not healthy either, because you might be empowering people that aren't ready for that empowerment. And that's where I saw a lesson I learned as a part of one of the fastest growing churches in America. It grew so fast, it just needed leaders. And so it started taking young men and putting them into positions that they were not ready for. And that caused chaos. And so I think the best thing a leader can do if they haven't done this is to go, who are the people that get our why, who embody our behaviors, who live out our actions already? Let me surround myself with them and say, okay, this is the core. This is who we are. No matter how big. If you're with a construction company, they have 50 plus employees. And I said, how's the culture? How's the team? And he goes, I think I have 5 that really embody. And the problem is, I used to have 12, 15, but I've lost them. And I go, that's the problem. Well, you can be making tons of money, but you'll lose your best employers because they need things like meaning and purpose. And they don't want to embody all the things and not see the benefits of that, not get the praise for it, not get the reward for it. And so, especially if other people doing less and embodying other things are getting the same recognition, the same, that's you have an unhealthy culture. And so find the people that do embody that already naturally and start to empower them, because you'll empower them to the right things. They already get it. They get the culture you want to scale. And so start small, and start small by not by small delegation, small empowerment, big empowerment. And that's where how you do that is it's just communication, right? It's the same in any kind of relationship, whether it's work or personal. The more communication you have, the more depth to that communication, working through why, then going how, what, not doing how, what first, but why. And then in light of the why, how are we going to do this? In light of the why, what are we going to do? The more you empower and truly empower them from the beginning, the more that you just sent an eagle off to fly, right? And that's why you want to gather the eagles around. The problem if you just go, we're going to be an empowering. I read this great book on empowerment. Well, the problem is you've got a couple eagles, you got some pigeons, you probably even have some squirrels. Or like, you can't fly. What is this, right?
Depends on the squirrel.
Right, exactly. They're flying squirrels. They don't fly very good. But, and I think that's the thing. Like, you've got to look and go, I want to empower the eagles, because whoever I empower, I want the pigeons to look at that and go, oh, it takes an eagle to fly here. I want to move from pigeon to eagle, right? You don't want to let pigeons fly, because then you're just getting crap all over everything, right? And so empower your eagles. Start with 2, depending on how big your organization, maybe start with 1. Start with, don't make it a number. Make it, do I have a mission? Who's embodying the behaviors and the actions that need to be repeated to make that mission happen? And if you don't have any, then start clarifying your mission, talking about your key behaviors. You embody it then. And then watch who's embodying these things, who's just naturally going, this is what I need. And guess what? You'll find out if you start doing this, if you start every staff meeting with, this is our mission. We already know it. Good. I already know what a bass drum sounds like. Oh, well, percussion section, take the week off. We don't need you at the concert because we all know what drums sound like. No, we need you to beat the bass drum to give us the time. Yeah. We need you. We need that repetition. And a lot of the problems with leadership is we've thought about it. We've dreamt about it. By the time it comes out of our mouth in a staff meeting, we're almost tired of it. Yeah. Right? And so then we move on after 2 iterations of it, and the team hasn't gotten it. And that's why our teams get frustrated with leaders, is they go, you change your mind all the time. It's like, change my mind all the time? What are you talking about? And it's like, because I've lived in my mind that by the time it came out, I never gave it. Like I always said for leaders, I need to say that mission so many times. It literally makes me nauseous to have to say it again. And by that time, maybe the team is starting to get it. Leadership is really boring. right? But that's the problem. I think we want it to be sexy. That's why we love busy work. We want leadership to, I want it to do something for me. And it's like good leadership is very boring. It's very over and over. You are the drum player. I'm going to beat this drum. Once in a while I'll get a solo, right? When we do the project, the big project is accomplished. Great, awesome. But guess what? If the drummer plays a solo every 4 measures, it's Animal from the Muppets, right? It's just anarchy. Like, it's not that way. The drummer's you don't notice the drummer.
Yeah.
They're there.
Yeah.
Setting the rhythm.
That is a very unique take on or explanation of leadership, because often we hear leadership is lonely, right? Some people say it's lonely at the top. I would argue it's lonely out in front, right? But that's kind of that drummer boy role of keeping that beat, and so that everybody else can march to it and make sure we're all headed in the right direction.
Yeah.
Seth, thank you for coming in. We could do way more of these. We uncovered more topics that we could talk about. So tell people where they can find you.
It's haltingwinter.com is the coaching, consulting. You can go to SethWinterhalter.com, which is actually being redone for speaking, for keynote stuff. And so SethWinterhalter.com or haltingwinter.com. And hook me up. I'm on all the Seth Winterhalter. I know by typing winter, then you're tired and you probably need to take a nap before you type the rest of that, but I'm on social.